Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. Rabbi Firli. May God forgive us for the mistakes that we know and the mistakes that we don't know that we make. And so, let's begin this episode. Hello, everyone. For now, I've made it a sort of purpose for myself to speak about the idea that there's a system admin. And so this lecture begins with an important question to all creation, but specifically humanity. Have you noticed the system administrator of this world yet? Have you noticed that this world has a system admin? I want to dive deeply into this idea. There will be certain content I will be reading for you here. And really, one portion of this lecture is focused on what it implies that there's a system admin, and the other is about how do we notice that there's a system admin through our daily life or through a sort of deep analysis. So, first of all, to communicate, that the idea that there's a system admin can be interpreted in different ways. And when I look at human beings alive now and I wonder about their psychology, I ask myself what sort of maturity our species has. This is an important question because your behavior automatically displays your maturity. And so if we take a case of, let's say, two individuals and they've attended a gathering, okay? We have person A and person B. And so let's say we see that person A, something happens in this, let's say, case, in this gathering, right? And person A suddenly gets up and starts shouting at everybody and starts blaming everybody, and in some sense storms out, you know? And so we see that, imagine the same thing was applicable to person B, happened to person B, but rather than them storming out, shouting at others, blaming others, what they really do is that they just bask in the moment quietly, and they observe it. And then they begin wondering about what was the reasoning behind the events that took place. You see, there's a difference. There is one mode is reactive. One mode, person A, for example, in this example, person A is being reactive. Person A is considering that what is happening to them is more important than what is happening to others. You know how they say, I don't know, they say it like this, but, you know, I say it like this, that let's say there's a narcissistic epidemic. There's an epidemic of narcissism happening. And what this implies really is that human beings, when they don't trust their world, when they don't trust more layers of perception than their own, they become bound. They become perception bound by their own reality. right? When you look at, for example, a child, let's say a youth, and then you look at, for example, an adult, and when incidents happen, on some level, it's about how to handle the burden of the experience, you know? So, for example, the child cannot accept the burden of what happened, so it has to either blame others externally or it has to put the blame internally. Do you know? And so there's a completely, it's a different vibe from being able to observe a situation that is happening or having to react to the situation for it to mean something specifically. Do you know what I'm saying? So I'm pretty much telling you that there's different approaches, and when we look at our when we look at our current human species, based on the behaviors of the humans, you know, we can in some sense kind of get a sense of, okay, is the species mature or not? Do you know? Is the species shifting the blame still externally? You know, are we blaming others for what is going on, or have we reached a point that we blame ourselves for what is going on? Or can we observe the situation and realize that there are levels to every moment? There is levels to behaviorism. There's levels to how people even communicate to one another. When I was younger, for example, in my schooling days, there would be incidents that would happen, and rather than spending more time in trying to comprehend why that took place and what other reasons it could be, it was as if I reacted with my initial perception and I got a perception bound. Do you know? By the perception I had, the initial perception. You know, a very good metaphor that fits here is that I'm happy to say that my chess rating has improved. Hopefully one day I could get a professional fight rating. But like, you know, I used to be, you know, I mean, I'm not that good still, but I used to be like, you know, struggling to go above 1,100, do you know? And now I'm at you know, 1,300 level, you know. And so one thing that shifted was not reacting to what immediately happens, and not reacting also to what internally immediately happens, which is my own idea on the situation, right? There's a story I'll tell you after, a hilarious story. It's kind of like a joke, but a story at the same time. But anyways, back to the chess thing. The chess thing is that when something happens, or let's say your opponent makes a move and you find a good move, does that mean you should react and take that good move? No, it means you find a good move, but you wait. You try to find another good move. You wait. So you found your second better move and you're like, okay, I gotta wait and try to see if there's another better move here. So similarly, I find it that when it comes to the maturity level of the species and human beings here, based on what is happening to them and based on how they perceive different problem sets or different events that take place, they need to kind of pause and see if there's a better perception on it. I'll give you an example. I said before I go into the story, I told you the example of person A and person B, right? Person A is like a chess player who just found one move, one way to engage the moment and acted on it. But person B was like, okay, let's say somebody has said something offensive to me. Okay, is it my fault? You know, is it the other's fault? You know? The person then wonders, and he's like, wait a minute, maybe this person who suddenly lashed out at me is suffering. Maybe this person who suddenly said this has problems of their own and they just needed somebody to take out. And my extremely passive and, you know, innocent vibe kind of made me a boxing bag. Guys, compassion is remarkably complex and funny. I think compassion is like, one of the most amazing responses a human being can have to a situation, and also it's way more complex. It is way more complex than just, fighting back, you know. It took me a while to realize it, but kindness is the behavior of a way more sophisticated being, than a sort of animalistic wilderness, and from an Islamic context, man is considered to be neither an angel and neither a beast, and somewhere in the middle, right? So anyways, another example now to the story I wanted to tell you. I mean, it's a ridiculous story, okay? It's see this as a work of fiction. But okay, this is old. I heard this when I was young, all right? I think one of my uncles said it to me as a joke. He said there was this guy, on the rooftop at night, just, having a cigarette or something. And suddenly some random person runs and says, like, let's say the guy's name is Mark or something, and says, "Mark, your family and children are dead." And the guy's like in a hysteria and shouts this. And this guy at the rooftop suddenly says, "My God, my life is over. What am I living for anymore?" And he drops. This is just a playful story. Don't see too deep into it, but it's just a story, okay? From a wilder time of humanity. So the guy drops himself, and because the story is fiction, he knows that. So as the guy's dropping, he suddenly, thinks about his life, and he's like, "Man, I lived a life, But then he suddenly thinks about it. He's like, "Hey, wait a minute, man. I never had kids." It's like he's suddenly dumbfounded. He's like, "I never had kids." And then as he's falling more, he's like, "Wait a minute, I never got married." And at the end, he falls down and he says, "Oh my God, I'm not even Mark." So that's the suggestion of, the consequence of reacting to a situation without attempting to observe deeper layers of perception to it. Okay. Now, anyways, all of this that I'm saying, from the example to the story, is talking about the maturity of the species, is there to suggest to you that are we reacting to the information available to us as beings, or are we choosing to go deeper and wonder about deeper layers of perception that may be present? This is important. So anyways, and guys, keep in mind, I am, I've decided as time has gone by in this world to be more myself. And I have a Muslim framework to reality. And anyways, this is a different discussion on why. But anyways. So, to carry on, I want to read for you some things I've prepared here, okay? And so, first I'm going to discuss, first I'll discuss the significance, okay? Or actually, I think it makes sense to go through it. Okay, I'll start with the other section. I want to explain to you how throughout our daily lives as human beings, we can notice that there's a system admin in this world, like examples of it. So here it goes. I'm going to read it for you. So how can human beings notice that there's a system administrator behind this existence? You know, and what are examples of it? One example of it is the digital code of DNA. In 2025, people increasingly marvel at how DNA operates like a sophisticated programming language, a four-letter code, ATCG, that governs the construction of every living organism. Why is this profound? Just like no computer program arises without a coder, many see DNA as pointing to a system administrator who authored the original code of life. Even Nobel-winning scientists have remarked on its appearance of design. Random mutation explains adaptation, but who authored the first operating system behind life itself? So if somebody's like, hey man, I don't see a system admin here, I'll be like, okay, let's look at the clues. Let's not react to the initial data, to just the, first layer of perception. Let's see what's deeper. So DNA, there's an obvious, it's like, yo man, that looks like code to me. So you can notice it, for example, in regards to how you're coded. You're coded, okay? We move on to the second example, the fine-tuning of the universe. Bah, 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 bah. The constants of physics, like gravity, the speed of light, the speed of light, or the strength of electromagnetism, are fine-tuned to an absurd degree. Change them slightly and galaxy stars or even atoms wouldn't form. Why is this profound? In 2025, astrophysicists still debate whether this is random luck, a multiverse accident, or evidence of deliberate calibration. The fact that the universe's settings are so precise makes some feel like they're living inside a cosmic machine that was purposefully set up, hinting at a grand cosmic admin. Guys, I have taken upon myself to study Islam way more deeper, and there are parallels to this, that this was created for man as a sort of testing zone. I find that, and of course, if it's a testing zone, it's fine-tuned as when I would take exams in like these giant hallways when I was young, right? And they had exactly the exam paper placed on the table, the tables, placed with specific, distance between one another, exact order system, so I guess these efforts of mine to speak about this is to, in some sense, tell humanity that, hey, maybe this whole time we've been missing out on a greater appreciation of how this system is constituted and how it's actually a system here, right? Anyways, we go to the third example, glitches in the matrix and synchronicity. These are common. So first I'm sharing like some, basic examples, and then I'm going to go into deeper ones. So synchronicity and glitches in the matrix. You think about someone you haven't seen in years and they suddenly message you. You narrowly avoid a terrible accident by an improbable series of delays. You have a vivid dream and it materializes the next day in real life. What is profound about this? In 2025's hyper-rational world, These synchronicities still shake people to their core. Carl Jung called them meaningful coincidences. To some, they feel like the admin is nudging or customizing their experience, debugging, redirecting, or patching reality for unseen purposes. I'm not, I don't hold the same spiritual perspective as I had years ago, but years ago I found synchronicity to be very profound. But later on, I realized that the reason it's so profound is because it gives you this feeling. It's like this feeling that you are in greater attention of a coordination of reality. So, anyways, we go to the fourth example: the human heart and emotional algorithms. Humans instinctively know that love, compassion, and conscience hold higher value than power or material gain, even when those values are less efficient in an evolutionary sense. Why is this profound? Why does selfless love feel right universally, even when it's disadvantageous? It's as if the admin wrote moral and spiritual principles into the firmware of human consciousness, and humans feel a deep inner error signal when they deviate too far from this code. This is very profound. Conscience is an error signal. Me personally, I will tell you, it's proven to me that there's moments where I've done something wrong, or I've, somebody's, when I was younger and immature, more immature, when somebody would do something, let's say they would kind of like, offend me, I would have to, like, I felt like I had to do something about it, kind of like, and I would have to do something more intense. And when I would do that thing that was more intense, I would feel this error signal. You feel this error signal. It's honestly very profound. I think it's beautiful, that there's countermeasures here in the system we're living in. For me, guys, I will share an example, probably only once here. Something that the viewers don't know is that last year I was walking. I was in Dubai. I was crossing the street, but I made the subconscious mistake of just being on my phone, and the car actually hits me. And anyways, I go to the hospital and I'm there, there was blood on my left knee. And it was a very bizarre experience. I remember when the car hit me, and I fell, like I felt like I flipped and I fell on the ground. I was just vocalizing in my mind, I was just, my mind was just, and went into this mode of just like, apologizing to the system admin and asking for protection from the system admin. It was very intense, actually. But anyways, long story short, the ambulance comes, and I'm there in the hospital bed, and the doctor, we go and we do an x-ray and scan and everything, and I was just hoping that I could just, kind of like still move and still be able to even play sports or something, right? It was a very intense psychological moment for me. And then the lady comes and says, there's nothing broken. There's nothing broken. And it was such a shock to me that I just thank the system admin, So I'm telling you, in this life, events happen, things happen that you will suddenly experience. You know, this relates to more like the glitches in the Matrix and whatnot, right? So miraculously, nothing happened. You know, and there was pain, of course, and I couldn't walk for a while, but there wasn't anything critical. There wasn't critical damage. Do you know? And it was very profound for me because it gave me this feeling that maybe anyways, maybe that I still have work to do here. The system admin still requires me in the system. So anyways, that was just to give you a real life example, you know. But anyways, to go back to what I was reading about the human heart and emotional algorithms, right? So I'll read it again. The observation was that humans instinctively know that love, compassion, and conscience hold higher value than power or material gain, even when those values are less efficient in an evolutionary sense. Why is this profound? Oh, I think I read this too. Sorry, guys, I'm rereading here. Pretty much, why it's profound is because of an error signals. You know, it's as if the admin wrote moral and spiritual principles into the firmware of human consciousness, and humans feel a deep inner error signal when they deviate too far from this code. We go to the fifth example: the awe of beauty and the sublime. And this is something to be grateful for. Even in 2025's fast-paced, tech-driven world, people stop dead in their tracks to admire a sunset, an ocean horizon, or the stars above a desert. Music still stirs the soul to tears. Why is this profound? Beauty seems unnecessary from a survival standpoint. Yet it permeates life, from fractals and snowflakes to symphonies to the mathematical symmetry of nature. This draws people to suspect there's more than raw functionality. Like the admin added aesthetic flourishes to creation for beings capable of wonder. I mean, it is a very, you know, I hadn't thought about it like this before, but it is very profound that why do we have a sense of beauty? How does beauty contribute to survival? I guess beauty could imply greater health, and based on that, maybe we identify that the beautiful is like better. But survival wise, why aren't we like analytical just like a robot? You know, why do we care about beauty? You know, why do we have emotions? Of course, those are important. We go to the sixth example. The deep logic of mathematics. The universe obeys mathematical laws. Just in case if you didn't know, guys. The universe obeys mathematical laws. Even phenomena discovered later, like quantum mechanics or relativity, end up fitting into elegant mathematical frameworks. Why is this profound? If humans invented math, why does reality conform to it so perfectly? It's as though the admin designed both the world and the abstract language, math, to understand it, as if leaving behind the source code documentation. That's so profound. Imagine, you know, the development of math throughout history, and imagine one of the earliest mathematicians being like, yo man, are we looking at source code right now? The existential system source code. Fascinating idea. Another example where how you can notice the system admin throughout daily life: death as a log out or transition. I think sleep also falls into this category. No matter how advanced we get, even with AI, biotech, and longevity research, death remains an unavoidable log out from the current system. Why is this profound? This has always felt like a checkpoint or transition rather than just an end. Many since the admin has structured existence this way on purpose, just like sessions in a simulation expire, but the player, in brackets soul, continues elsewhere. In 2025, with people increasingly familiar with systems theory, software engineering, and AI, the idea of God as a kind of cosmic system administrator feels relatable. An unseen intelligence maintaining uptime, intervening through patches and upgrades, and monitoring activity. Only now, it's not just a metaphor, but a way to frame ancient spiritual insights in modern digital terms. There we go. That's pretty much my effort here. The system admin is the archaic revival of how there is a God beyond the system. And there is explanations. That means if somebody says Mr.Within, why, how would you perceive Christianity here? I would say, see, first of all, go where your heart leads you. But what I want to, at least for me, you see, at least in the domain of the language and the connecting points, first of all, Muslims, they honor and respect all prophets, peace be upon them all. So I have a great respect for Christ. It's way more advanced than myself. But the issue is that if I will say the thought, a sort of the thought line for it is something like, if Christ was a man and Christ was also God, if Christ died on the cross, did God die? And so because God cannot die, God cannot be just limited to human form. And of course there is, as somebody mentioned earlier in the chat section, there is the notion of the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. But there's a differentiation from the Islamic viewpoint that even the Prophet of Islam, peace be upon him, Prophet Muhammad, he didn't say that I am your salvation. He said that God is your salvation, the one and only. La ilaha illallah. In the Quran, there are passages where the passage is speaking to the Prophet, peace be upon him, and is saying that you are here as a warner and to bring glad tidings for those who this book is a mercy for. So this is the difference, that the system admin, it does not necessarily require to be limited by the functions in the system. We may notice the system admin. That means you may look at Christ, and people back in the day looked at Christ and they felt the system admin. That's different than Christ is the system admin. Do you see? And of course, this is just I'm just explaining a view here. I believe also in Islam, it mentions that one of the closest allies, aside from the political frictions and cultural frictions we see, is that the Christians are some of the closest people to Muslims. And on some level, you can categorize people based on their, or you can categorize them based on their allegiance of their heart. That means what has their heart, I guess, allied with. So now I'm going to go into deeper examples of how we can notice a system admin. So the mathematical ontology of existence, the universe as executable code. Some of these could be even deeper observations on what I said earlier too. The universe is underpinned by mathematical laws, but deeper reflection shows these aren't merely descriptive, they are prescriptive. Equations like Schrodinger's equation or Einstein's field equations actively govern phenomena as if they are executable instructions of a machine. Why is this profound? In 2025, physicists and mathematicians are starting to see the unreasonable effectiveness of mathematics as a fingerprint of an admin. Why would reality obey abstract, immaterial rules unless those rules were compiled into, in quotations, the kernel of existence? This raises questions about informational realism, the idea that reality is fundamentally informational. The very fact that complex emergent properties, example human minds, star systems, emerge from simple initial conditions suggests that the admin didn't merely wind up the clock, but programmed a reality capable of self-organizing complexity. Even the multiverse hypothesis, which tries to bypass fine-tuning, still assumes an underlying meta-reality that governs the distribution of universes, suggesting yet another admin layer overseeing the simulation. So the mathematical laws that human beings find, it may be that the code is way more complex. Anyways, we go to the second example, the entropy paradox and entropy management. The second law of thermodynamics says entropy, disorder, in brackets, increases. Yet life, and by extension conscious intelligence, seems to be an entropy-defying process, continually generating order, complexity, and coherence with a universe trending toward heat death. Why is this profound? Why does existence allow for highly non-equilibrium systems like biological life, where order perpetuates itself despite the larger universe drifting toward chaos? In advanced cybernetics, this would require external information injection or system maintenance by an unseen regulator. From this view, life itself is an admin flag, in quotations, like a suspicious anomaly in a simulation where localized nodes keep booting into complex configurations against the overall decay. Is the admin actively managing entropy budgets on pockets of reality to allow conscious observers to arise? Is there a meta-thermodynamic layer that permits such anomalies to persist? We move on to the hyperconsistency of cause and effect, causal integrity across scales. From subatomic particles to galactic structures, causality holds unbroken. The cosmos runs on ultra-precise initial conditions. Example, the baryon-photon ratio in the early universe, that continue producing consistent physical behavior on all scales. Why is this profound? A closed system might eventually drift off, may eventually drift or errs. Yet the cosmos maintains causal integrity across 13.8 billion years, with particles obeying laws identically in different regions of spacetime. In computational theory, consistency across distributed systems requires a monitoring process, a watchdog. In the sense, God as admin would be ultimately in the sense, God as admin would be the ultimate global consistency enforcer, keeping every atom accountable to the same rule book across all clusters of the cosmic network. The more advanced the system, the higher the need for system checks. The absence of causal drift is itself evidence of systemic maintenance beyond blind chance. Something interesting that there's a passage in Islam, in the Holy Quran, where it's very profound, where it says every atom, everything in existence is calling God's name. You know, it's as if every single point in this system of being, from cells to whatever, do you know, is, since it is in the presence of the system admin, by its being is calling upon it. Do you know? Just a second, guys. Oh. So let's kind of like recap these deeper points I've been making. So we had the mathematical ontology of existence, the universe is executable code. Pretty much it's saying the universe doesn't just follow math, it runs on it like a program following code. Equations like Einstein's aren't just describing reality, they control it. This hints at an intelligent admin who programmed the rules. The second thing I read for you, not the second, but the second part of the deeper observations, examples of noticing the system admin that I read for you, is the entropy paradox and entropy management. The universe trends towards disorder, so this is a summary of it. The universe trends towards disorder, entropy, but life keeps building order. It's like someone is secretly injecting energy or maintaining life zones, suggesting an admin is managing small pockets of reality to allow life. The third thing I read for you was the hyperconsistency of cause and effect. For 13.8 billion years, every part of the universe has followed the same rules with no errors or glitches. In computing, that needs a system checker. This might point to God as the ultimate enforcer of cosmic order. On to the next one. The conscious observer effect, anthropic engineering. Quantum mechanics reveals that observation affects outcomes. The doubt, in brackets, the double split experiment wave function collapse. Consciousness plays an inexplicable role in making potential realities solidify into specific states. This suggests that the universe, why is this profound? This suggests that the universe's back end has been engineered to require observers to complete computational processes, like rendering in a game engine. The universe behaves like lazy loading code. Potential outcomes exist in a probabilistic fog. Only observation collapses them into hard reality. In a closed world system, this feels like deliberate design. Consciousness is both player and processor. A co-participant in existence is unfolding. The admin signature here is in engineering a reality that won't finalize or render without embedded conscious minds acting as quantum validators. Much like how a decentralized system needs nodes to confirm data blocks. So, to kind of summarize this, quantum physics shows reality loads when observed, like a video game rendering when you look at it. Consciousness seems needed to make the universe finalize itself, designed to require observers. So I think that's a remarkably fascinating idea, that our consciousness renders reality. That means it's like our attention, loads, our access to the system. Loads the system perception. The next example of noticing the system admin. Emergence of metacognition and the mystery of self-reference. In 2025, AI systems still struggle to replicate human self-awareness, ethical reasoning, or true creativity. Meanwhile, humans naturally evolve metacognition, the capacity to think about thinking, to self-reflect and moralize. Why is this profound? In Gödel's incompleteness theorem, any sufficiently complex system can't fully explain itself from within. Humans are uniquely able to perceive this paradox and strive for transcendence, often manifesting in spirituality, art, and moral evolution. It's as though the admin programmed escape routes into human consciousness. The sense of longing beyond the material, the drive to seek origin and purpose, the yearning to reconcile paradoxes like free will versus determinism. In complex systems theory, meta-reference, a system capable of reflecting on itself, implies layered architecture, like software that knows it is running on a deeper operating system. Human consciousness itself feels like a sandbox module, probing for contact with the admin of the metasystem. To summarize this, humans thinking about thinking and seeking meaning, unlike AI or animals, let's say lesser animals, it feels like we're programmed with an escape key to search for deeper truths, morality, and even God. This kind of relates to the thing I was saying about once you find one move, try to find a better move. It's the same thing, that the more animalistic an individual, the more reactive they are. But we have an ability to view one layer of perception, like entering a room and then stepping out of that room and seeing other rooms. You know, here it's saying like the escape key. So here's a deeper example on the synchronicity. So synchronicity as back-end communication. People still experience meaningful coincidences, synchronicities, which, while statistically improbable, seem personally significant beyond mere chance. Why is this profound? In complex networks, example distributed databases, subtle feedback loops or hidden interconnections often explain strange correlations between seemingly unrelated nodes. Could synchronicity be subtle back-end messages? In quotations, admin pings suggesting unseen causal linkages across timelines and experiences. A higher level orchestration layer, synchronizing disparate threads of individual narratives towards learning, protection, or existential nudges. From a metaphysical standpoint, synchronicity can be interpreted as admin debugging nodes, temporarily exposed to the player, hints that the code base of reality is aware of its observers. Excuse me. So, to summarize this, meaningful coincidences feel like hidden messages. In tech, strange patterns can mean system feedback. Synchronicity could be admin pings, little nudges from the system guiding or warning us. The next example is the inevitability of death as a log-off protocol. No matter how advanced humanity becomes, death remains a non-negotiable system constraint, immune to technological disruption. From Islamic thought, there's this idea, a sentence in the Holy Quran that says I don't know if it's all humans or all beings, will taste death. Do you know? It's a meaning that we all go through that. That means if you're someone who's making a to-do list, it's not per se a necessary idea to consider that that's at the end of the to-do list. And excuse me, when I say to-do list, not that you do it. You shouldn't force it in the system. It should be natural. But in some sense, I'm saying there is log-off protocol. Why is this profound? Why does a system as adaptable as life still include death as a built-in feature? From a systems perspective, death functions as a logout mechanism to reset, release, or transition consciousness elsewhere. Like a session timeout, it prevents infinite recursion or memory overflow within a single process. The universality and inevitability of death may point to an admin-imposed life cycle policy akin to sandboxing players in a limited session before routing them to a different mode, afterlife, reincarnation, or undefined beyond. Personally, I guess I should say this, I don't believe in reincarnation. But I do believe in the afterlife. I do believe that before this life, there was a place in Islamic circles. It's called Alam al-Arwa. It's like the world of the souls, and there the souls of the same ranks, of similar ranks, would notice one another. But anyways, To summarize this, no one escapes death. It's built in like a system log off. It might not be the end, but a reset or transfer to a new system, just like games or networks move users to different stages. So then we have meta reflection, the God mode thought, the in quotations God mode, and then thought. In 2025, as people increasingly relate to simulation theory, AI, and quantum computing, God's system administrator metaphor feels more literal than ever before. Debugging through miracles, firewalling destructive actions via conscience, sandboxing entities, placing humans in the physical realm with sensory limits. The brilliance here is that humans were gifted partial admin privileges, the ability to create, to explore, and even to hack their internal code via meditation, fasting, or altered states of consciousness. Yet, the root password remains locked, pointing to a higher being maintaining sovereignty over the cosmic mainframe. How beautiful is that we have certain admin system admin privileges, and in the Holy Quran it says that man was placed on this earth to be a vicegerent, a sort of ambassador of God, but not prophetic level, at least for general humanity. To me, the prophets, why they are fascinating, peace be upon them all, is that they had admin privileges. To me, Christ, for example, had incredible system admin privileges. Whether it was healing the sick, performing miracles, the crucifixion and the resurrection of that resurrection. Also, something interesting for people to know, in Islam, people consider that Christ will return. Just like there's many deep layers of perception, I'm telling you, there's many advanced systems around us. And for us to observe these systems, rather than react to them, means we get access to deeper source code, So now I'll go to the second part. So, what does there being a system admin? Now, let's look at the idea from this perspective that, let's say, human beings eventually, all of us woke up and we're like, yo, man, there's a system admin here this whole time. We've been thinking we are the administrator of the system, but we've been administering our limited systems. So whoever you are, I encourage you to become fascinated by where you are right now and what is going on. So what does this imply for humanity in 2025, and what does this also imply in regards to what the world needs to do now? So I'm going to read this for you. If we accept the idea that there's a system administrator, God, managing reality in 2025, Even let's say you're not religious, you just tap into this idea that there's a system admin. So what does this imply? It implies a few profound things about humanity's place, responsibilities, and existential role. Let's break it down into three interconnected layers: cosmic, societal, and personal. And these each carry deep implications. Let's start with the cosmic implication. Humanity as conscious agents inside a design system. What does this imply? The existence of an admin suggests humanity is not a random byproduct of blind forces, but a deliberate subsystem within a larger architecture. A node inside a reality created with intent, precision, and purpose. That means you're not just on a, as I used to say previously, we're on a rock in the middle of nowhere. 8 billion creatures on a rock swimming in the middle of nowhere. It's not just in the middle of nowhere. Once we take deeper observations, when we really zoom into the details of the system, we kind of realize that it was created with intent, precision, and purpose. Now, what must humanity do with this implication? Seek alignment with the system's purpose. If existence is maintained by an admin, then humanity's mission includes discovering the source code principles of this admin, often interpreted as natural laws, ethical axioms, or divine commands. And then acknowledge epistemic humility. Just as users within a simulation can't access root privileges, humans must recognize their incomplete view of the full system. This drives a sense of awe, mystery, and intellectual responsibility, balancing empirical exploration with metaphysical openness. So, guys, I want to give you an example here that fits this. Imagine, like I'm saying system admin, and here it's saying seek alignment with the system's purpose. So I want you to imagine that there is an army, there's a general, and there's soldiers. And we zoom in on the soldiers, and let's say, this to me parallels the difference between a spiritual and religious person. There is one soldier who's like, hey man, we're in battle, and I don't need to listen or acknowledge that I have a general. I'm just gonna be like this solo warrior kind of berserker in this battle, and I'm gonna just go all out on myself, and I'm just gonna go follow the rhythms of the battle. See, that's kind of like a spiritual person not acknowledging consciously that there is a system admin, but in some sense holding the significance of the event taking place just onto themselves, their own experience. This is why kind of the difference between why religion to me is way more advanced than spirituality, because spirituality is in your own room. Once you realize there is a system admin, there's a general in this battle, there's commands, there's sort of purpose, goals, there's a strategy, there's tactics, and the difference between strategy and tactics, there's a beautiful differentiation between them. Strategy is how to win the war, tactics is how to win each battle. So spiritual people, they're still occupied with, they're in the tactical stage, right? They're not considering the significance of the system admin in the overall strategy of the system. You see? Anyways, moving on to the societal implication. Collective behavior as part of system-wide harmony. What does this imply in 2025 for people? A divinely administered system implies moral objectivity. Example, there are universal principles embedded in reality, akin to how physics has inviolable laws. Just as the physical world operates under constants, so too might human society be subject to moral constants, such as justice, mercy, cooperation, and stewardship, protecting those who are lesser, feeding the hungry, advancing the system for building an advanced civilization for future generations? What does this imply that humanity must do? System integrity, like maintaining code hygiene or respecting protocols. Societies should avoid corrupting the system through oppression, exploitation, or ecological destruction. The admin may have designed the system to be self-correcting, meaning systemic failures, wars, collapses, climate disasters might be the system auto-adjusting to bad inputs. For me, I kind of feel this on a personal level as well, like in certain attempts of trying to, of community development for this channel. For example, I've seen this whole corrupting the system example, that many people have come in and they've kind of hijacked the space, the social groups space, and just just mercilessly just inputted whatever they wanted, and for me, I on in certain cases that would interpret to me as backing away because the system has become corrupted, right? The space has become corrupted, but on some level it's unavoidable, because there's different beings, there's different conscious agents, and they act in accordance to what is real to them. But this is where having an ability to see, to be concerned, again, as I was saying, example A and example B, immaturity and maturity, that immaturity is just what is important to me, but maturity is like, wait a minute, could there be a greater significance that relates to that which is beyond me, just me, Anyways, let's keep going. Act as so what does this imply that humanity must do? I read system integrity. Now, the next point here is act as system custodians. Humans would have a collective duty to nurture ecosystems, promote equity, and elevate civilization toward higher order functioning, acting like admins in training or co-maintainers of the system. This falls very beautifully, this aligns very beautifully with the idea that the future generations deserve our most advanced effort towards an advanced civilization. And then the next thing is avoid excessive hubris. Technological progress in 2025, AI, biotech, etc., gives humanity power akin to lower level admin rights. But the misuse of tools, example AI oppression, unchecked consumerism, could destabilize humanity's node within the admin's broader architecture. So these were all part of the implication of what humanity must do for the societal implication. Now we go to the personal implication. The individual as a self-aware module. What does this imply? Each human is a conscious module running on this reality system, autonomous but nested within the broader framework. This means individuals carry sacred agency, but also embedded responsibilities. What does this imply in regards to what humanities must do on a personal level? Align with the moral code base. In this model, conscience isn't just emotion. It's a user interface signal from the admin, alerting each user when they deviate from intended pathways, example, injustice, betrayal, cruelty. For me, for example, my moral code base has been aligned more and more with the Holy Quran. This doesn't mean that I suddenly I am devoid of deeper layers of perception, and I just take things for verbatim, because as much as for me, like the Holy Quran, at least for me, there's no doubt that that is like, in some sense, some sort of sacred code base, divine code base, like a code database. But how the codes are being interpreted still may have the bias of the human imperfection, right? But a lot of it has made my life better, from no longer, drinking alcohol, you know, to, in some sense, realizing that once I make a mistake, the immediate protocol is to repent. And you don't repent to another human being. I mean, yes, if you've done something wrong to another human being, apologize and stabilize like the external system. But just for the nature of your own code, let's say your own personal code and program, repentance is a way of updating the program from something that was wrong. It's as if that more than what you did offended others or yourself, it could have potentially offended the system admin. And for the future generations to begin not just being fascinated by that there's a system admin here, but to, in some sense, establish a relationship with the system admin. To establish a relationship with the system admin is not like saying, yo man, I'm a system admin too. It's not that. Okay? To establish a relationship, you know what that's like? That's like somebody wanting to come and become friends with you, and they're like, I am you, man. And you'll be like, no, you're not. So similarly, in no way, shape, or form, I believe that I am a system admin. There are system admin privileges given to the human position, human consciousness, but we are not system admins. We administrate limited systems, but we're looking at the whole existential system. The next point of what humanity must do on a personal level: pursue inner debugging. Just as systems experience bugs, so do humans. Ego, self-deception, delusion, even self-sabotage. This is way more common than it appears, because the honor, the human value system of this cultural paradigm, of this era that all human beings are in, there is it's as if if you were to kind of process the more dishonorable acts than honorable ones subconsciously, it's like it's important to restore your own honor. And the greatest way is to, in some sense, request it from the system admin and align to the system administrator values. Part of the system debugging, inner debugging, could be to no longer lash out at the system. If something happens that is, let's say, offends the person or discomfort, this doesn't mean don't maintain your boundaries, but it means don't break things here. Anyways, we go to the next point: contribute to systemic flourishing. Beyond survival or pleasure seeking, each person should aim to become a node of contribution, helping the whole system evolve toward higher coherence, beauty, and wisdom. My intent, I believe, earlier in my life in giving these talks was to position the advanced civilization as that, but even more brilliant than that is the idea of the system admin. Now, to have a deeper, let's say higher reflection on this, we can consider that this is the admin's test environment. So I'll read this for you. If life is an admin designed simulation or cosmic system, what are some questions we can ask? Is suffering a pressure test to refine users into more resilient modules? Is free will a gift of limited admin rights to teach beings responsibility? Is the world a testing ground before elevating consciousness into a higher server cluster? For example, afterlife, higher realms. What is the implication for 2025 for humanity? Humans live in a supervised, meaningful architecture and are tasked with becoming both builders and guardians within it. The chaotic modern world is not proof of admin absence, but may be an emergent property of poorly optimized collective behavior, a code begging for better architects. That means our input needs to be better. Now, for those who are Muslim out there, I'm gonna read this part for you. In regards to linking this idea, Islam already presents God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as the master of all systems, Rabbil Alameen. I say this at the beginning, the Lord of the worlds, all things, from cells to anything else. As the master of all systems, Rabbil Alameen, a sustainer, administrator, and designer of all that exists. The Holy Quran frames human life within a well-structured divine system similar to the admin system concept. Now, I'm gonna share a deeper integration of this admin framework with Islamic theology, and here there's examples provided. So for the cosmic layer, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the system architect and maintainer. In the Holy Quran, 39:62, Allah is the creator of all things, and He is over all things, disposer of affairs. What is the explanation of this? Islam teaches that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not only the creator, but also the constant maintainer, Al-Ghayyum, the one who keeps existence running. In system terms, Allah is the admin who authored the core operating system of the cosmos and maintains uptime without delegation. The Holy Quran repeatedly emphasizes that the heavens and the earth are not abandoned projects, they are actively sustained. In passage 255, neither drowsiness nor sleep overtakes him. This is pointing to God, the one and only. Now, again, what's an insight into this? In a world where humanity understands AI, automation, and system uptime, This parallels the idea of a non-stop admin monitoring and regulating existence, from gravity's consistency to unseen metaphysical realities. Now, onto the societal layer. And of course, guys, human beings have to collaborate towards the best outcomes. I believe in this. Compassionately, kindly, and to the best of their ability, non-violently. Do you know? In the Holy Quran it says, "Then we put you upon a way, Sharia, of the matter. So follow it and do not follow the desires of those who do not know." Now, let's say it is a very complex area to go into. To be honest, I think there needs to be way more expert people commenting on the societal layer of this. But it's in some sense realizing that it's as if codes, okay? So, how do I say it? It's like there is a code that acknowledges, let's say, a sort of database that acknowledges, there's a type of, let's say, code that acknowledges the admin in a specific way. Do you know? Anyways, what is an explanation of this? The Sharia is akin to a set of divine protocols, coding ethical, legal, and social behavior into human systems to ensure harmony. Without following this source code, societies may introduce corruption, facade into the system, destabilizing collective well-being. Now, how we interpret this source code is a massive effort of massive collective effort of human beings, right? Because we are right now living in a different era than where this source code initially appeared. This doesn't mean the source code is wrong, but it means it's way more of a complex task to interpret it. Because we are not alive then, we are alive now. An insight into this would be, in a chaotic world rife with greed-driven economics, environmental degradation, and algorithmic biases, Islam teaches that returning to the admin's blueprint, divine justice, fairness, stewardship, is critical for regaining system balance. When the Quran, Holy Quran says, "Do not cause corruption on the earth," 2:11, passage 2:11, it's as though it warns against introducing bugs or malware into God's system. Now we go to the personal layer. The human soul as a self-updating node. Its Quranic parallel in the Quran passage 91:7-8. By the soul and the one who proportioned it and inspired it with discernment of wickedness and its righteousness. An explanation of this would be the nafs, soul self, in brackets, is described as a node within the system, pre-installed with moral intuition, taqwa, and the potential for deviation, fujur. The human being, and guys, I said this part I'm reading, it's for Muslim audiences. The human being carries internal admin alerts, signals like guilt, shame, or contentment, prompting alignment or warning against moral corruption. An insight, the modern insight into this would be, in modern UX design, feedback loops are built into systems. Example, notifications, error sounds. Islam frames conscience and spiritual discomfort as spiritual notifications, part of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's embedded system to guide nodes, humans back to the righteous path. Synchronicity and divine decree qadr. It's Quranic parallel. Quran passage 33-38. And the command of Allah is a decree determined. An explanation for this would be Islam teaches qadr, divine decree, as part of reality's back-end processes. What appears to be coincidence is, in fact, meticulously calculated events unfolding according to the admin's hidden knowledge. This reflects synchronicities where believers are reminded to trust that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orchestrates events, even the subtle unseen data exchanges across time. What is the modern insight for this? In 2025, we understand back-end systems handling user experiences without the front-end users fully perceiving it. Islam suggests that the admin is orchestrating cross-node communications via qadr. The death logout and the akhirah, the afterlife transition. Quranic parallel. Okay, this is the passage I was telling you about earlier. Quran 29:57. Every soul will taste death. Then to us you will be returned. Excuse me, it's every soul. I said every being, humans. It's every soul will taste death. Then to us you will be returned. When it says us, guys, there's been scholars talking about this, that the way it's written in Arabic, it's like as superior individual significance. It doesn't mean us as in like a plural collective. There's only God, one and only system admin. So what is an explanation of this parallel? Death is not determination, but a system exit from the dunya, which is the world, a word that means world, into the akhirah, the hereafter. Another layer of the admin's overarching system. Islam teaches that existence continues after logout, and accountability, hisab, functions like security audit where every node is assessed. So what is the modern insight for this? Just as sandbox programs eventually return results or logs to the admin, so too does every soul return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for post-session review. The Quran, the Holy Quran, paints life as a finite session with embedded tests designed to refine and judge the soul's development. We move on to the next. The universe as signs, ayat, of the admin's hand. Here's the Quranic parallel. Quran passage 41:53. We will show them our signs in the horizons and within themselves until it becomes clear to them that it is the truth. I believe that the suggestion that the signs are signs in the horizons could be also pointing to the end of days. It's not just the individual soul that returns to the system admin, the whole system returns to the system admin. This is why playfully I had said in a talk, I think yesterday, or the day before, that the future is watching us right now. The future is the system admin. The system admin is watching us right now. So an explanation of this Quranic parallel. Ayat refers not just to Quranic verses, but to signs woven into reality itself. The stars, ecosystems, mathematical patterns, and human experiences. Islam urges believers to read the universe like admin written documentation, recognizing patterns, precision, and elegance as indicators of Allah's authorship. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's authorship. What would be the modern insight for this? As humans in 2025 witness fractals in nature, the golden ratio in architecture, and the Fibonacci sequence in biology, these can be seen as God's fingerprints embedded in the source code of creation, calling for reflection and gratitude. So pretty much for the Muslim audiences, the Holy Quran is positioning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the one who authored existence, upholds and monitors its integrity, implements moral law through wahi dash revelation slash bracket revelation, as one who administers judgment beyond the physical system, akhirah, communicates through system signs, ayat. So this was kind of like, connecting more deeply the idea of the system admin to its Islamic parallel. So anyways, the effort of this episode was to pretty much ask the viewers to wonder about if they have noticed that there's a system admin here. Have you noticed this? And if you haven't, I think it's a good idea to wonder about it. It's very profound. It's profound in a way that it kind of gives me goosebumps to think about it. As if, like, when I think about what are the levels of intelligent interaction or intelligent communication for a human being. Right now, as a human being, I can, interact, establish a relationship with, let's say, the people around me. I can go, train and establish a relationship with myself. I can establish a relationship with different systems, external systems, like, organizations, cultural classifications, societal systems, with different things, right? And so when I ask myself if there was a staircase or some sort of hierarchy, as if we were climbing up to what would the most advanced communication be. Let's say there was a human being that, if you want to start from the lowest, let's say you communicate to inferior beings. Let's say the lowest classification is starting with evil beings, evil lesser beings. Then you communicate to, let's say, just beings, let's say animals and whatnot. And then you communicate to human beings. And then you, in some sense, let's say you communicate, and of course, you shouldn't touch the unseen, but just for example's sake, like higher entities. And then let's say for the wonder of the modern mind, you communicate with, let's say, extraterrestrials, like there is that. But if you ask yourself, what is the most fascinating thing to communicate to and establish a relationship with as a node or as a user inside an existential system, it is the existential system administrator. And so religions their intent is to get you to, in some sense, acknowledge the system admin. And it's not about you per se robotically following it, because it's as if someone, the system administrator is here, and instead of reaching out to the system administrator, you just interact with the source code. I don't believe that's enough. You need to have the sincerity, the fascination, the pure, true wonder of, like, all right, there's a system admin here. And then you open up to this. It's an ancient idea, but it is a universal idea to the notion of prayer, to the notion of sincerely, whether among the crowd of manifestation or alone, to reach out to the system admin, to request system modifications, to request ease in your progress here. A very profound prayer is that God, make this life easy for me. Make the processes that I go through easy for me. And just, I will tell you, acknowledging the system admin truly, you will be fascinated by the changes that will come into your life. As I would say in earlier talks, if you want something, your protocol, you're going based on an imaginable protocol. But if you want something that is unimaginable, that is the system admin. It's as if you want to give yourself something that is imaginable, but if you want the system admin to solve your problem, it will solve it in unimaginable ways beyond your consideration and calculation. As if you wondering why certain things happened, later on to realize they were mercy from the system admin. So, have you noticed the system admin, system administrator of the world yet? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, all praise due to the Lord of the worlds. Rabbi Firli, may God forgive us for the mistakes that we know we make and the mistakes that we don't. Thank you for listening.